In this video, I want to talk a little bit about Kingdom Come Deliverance, since I've been playing it quite a bit lately, due to the fact that I was planning on playing it for a long time. I was just waiting the right time. So with the release of the sequel and the controversy surrounding it, I decided to give it a go. Because honestly, I wasn't sure I would enjoy this game, but I have to say I'm actually enjoying it. Even though I was kind of dubious in the sense that in the last few years I've come to find a bit boring games like these. So like games with huge maps, open worlds, RPGs with similar realistic mechanics. But I have to say that the game is definitely jank as fuck. It's one of those games that has a very distinctive feel of Euro jank. So think of stuff like Arma, for example. Yeah, if you can't stand that kind of jank, this game is not for you. Even if it's on console, it still has that kind of jank. Now, let's start talking about each aspect, at least the ones I think are relevant. The setting, of course, is medieval setting and is fairly realistic. The game is grounded in history. So, in that sense, if you want your medieval sort of games to have magic, a la Elder Scrolls or I don't know, the Souls games, yeah, no, this game is not for you, because there's just raw combat, so like melee combat with swords. There's range combat with bows, and the only thing slightly magic related, even though it's not really magic, it's alchemy. So creating potions and so on. So definitely not spells or that kind of stuff. Oh, and also this doesn't want to be like a proper review. I'm just gonna talk about my impressions and thoughts on the game. I will pass judgment on it, because why not? But there's no point in reviewing a game that's 80 years old at this point. I think it's interesting giving out my opinion on such a game that's considered, at least was considered a classic when it came out. Also thanks to the controversy at the time of the developer telling journals to fuck off for not having black people in the game. Yeah, but only because I have no attachment to this game. So it's like I do make videos and sort of reviews on older games. Like, for example, a few weeks ago I did a video on Arkham Asylum. But the thing is, with this game I have no attachment. So there's no point like in me revisiting this game, because I've never played it. I had never played it back when it came out. So I have no attachment to it. So I'm just gonna give out my impressions on something that's somewhat popular, especially now that the sequel is out. So that's my whole point. When it comes to the mechanics, let's start talking about the combat. The combat is probably one of the most discussed aspects of the game, because it definitely aims to be more realistic compared to, I don't know, stuff like Elder Scrolls. And in fact it is. It has more depth, is more realistic. It has combos, but it also feels like it's a bit limited, because I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to render the feel of a somewhat realistic sword combat, And it does work fairly well when there's one, maybe two enemies on screen. But yeah, when there's more than one enemy, when let's say there's more than three enemies, the combat kind of becomes a clusterfuck. And you can argue, well, the game is supposed to be realistic and you will never go toe to toe against 3-4 people. Yeah, I do agree, but now there comes a discussion that maybe some people will disagree with. But I personally think that it's fine for your game to have somewhat of grounded combat, but it also needs to be fun. So if every time you meet, I don't know, let's say more than 4 people, the combat becomes just not fun. Yeah, you can avoid it, you can find ways around it, but in the end, this is still a video game. So I think there needs to be an in-between realism and video gaminess, let's say. Now, I mean, the combat, don't get me wrong, the combat is fun. It's just that for the way it works, it's clearly structured around smaller battles. Because you can perform slashes, stabs and so on, combos as well, but of course the enemies will not stand there and take all your hits. They will block and so on and retaliate. So it also depends on the level of the enemy you're facing. So if they are enemies that are low level, yeah, it's definitely doable, even if you're fighting more than 3 people. But yeah, when there's multiple enemies that are very high level, yeah, it's probably better if you just run. Or cheese it, maybe, by using the horse. Or like chip away at them by using the bow. Because, yeah, they can fuck you up very easily. And also, another problem I have noticed is that in the first game, the combat relies a little bit too much on the whole master strokes, which is pretty much an automatic counter. As soon as you like block at the right time, your character will perform a master stroke, which is pretty much you block and you counter attack immediately, and it's a guaranteed hit. And yeah, I mean, sometimes, a lot of the times, the combat will just devolve into wait for the enemy to attack, so you can master strike him, which can get boring. So of course you don't want to do that, because otherwise you'll not have much fun. You'll yeah, you can try doing combos and everything, but sometimes when the enemies are very strong, just doing master strokes, it's probably the best strategy I have found. One thing that the combat renders well is also, like, at the beginning you really suck at combat, because the game, of course, the protagonist is not a knight. You start as a peasant, so you don't really know how to fight. And at the beginning, I mean, it's a mix of you not knowing how to circumnavigate the mechanics, but also the character itself in the game being ass. Yeah, so the beginning of the game is very traumatic, because you find yourself getting your ass kicked over and over. So in that sense, it's very realistic, because it gives you a realistic experience of a peasant not knowing how to swing a sword. And it can be daunting at the beginning, because you say, what the fuck am I doing wrong? I can't do anything. Yeah, it's normal. You just have to put a little bit time into the game training, with the various characters that can give you training. Practicing also, because the more you do something at this game, the better you get, the more points you get. Of course, kind of like any RPG. So train, learn mechanics, learn combos, and the combat will be definitely more enjoyable. You will start winning fights. Also thanks to leveling up, learning new skills, because some skills can make the difference even when you're fighting multiple enemies. I have noticed. And yeah, when it comes to the other mechanics, it's pretty much the same thing. The game has a somewhat realistic undertone in that sense. The mechanics are somewhat realistic, even though at times will be a bit tedious. Because, for example, if you're doing a quest, let's say, and you have to talk to a character, but it's nighttime, most likely that character will be sleeping. And there's no way, I mean, most of the time I've noticed there's no way you'll be able to wake them up. So you'll either have to sleep yourself, just wait it out, or waste time doing something else. And that can be a little bit annoying. Also in things like, for example, when you hunt and you get meat from animals, or even if you just buy the meat from the merchants, it will get spoiled relatively quick. And that can be annoying because sometimes you'll need to give that meat to certain persons for quests, but you'll also have to look at the time, so you can't like waste too much time going around with the meat, otherwise it'll get spoiled. Yeah, there is a potion to restore its like its quality, its edibleness, but yeah, it's not always readily available. And also, yeah, you can only save when you have a certain item in the inventory. So yeah, the game is full of little things like this that can be annoying, but honestly, I don't think they're much of a big deal. You can navigate around them. The game is worth, like, the gameplay is fun enough, the story is engaging enough that it makes you say, okay, I'll deal with these. They're not a much big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. The game itself is more enjoyable than the small defects or annoyances it has, in my opinion. Another gripe I have with it, for example, is when it comes to the fast travel. The fast travel can be a bit slow because you will watch the character walk on the map while you fast travel, and it goes quite slow. So it's not instantaneous. You'll watch the character walk on the map, kind of like a board game when it happens. Because even the fast travel is somewhat interactive in the sense that, for example, if your character meets something or someone on the road while it's fast traveling, the game will tell you, do you want to engage with this thing or do you want to skip it? And there is a percentage of success depending on the action you pick. So yeah, I just wish the fast travel played out a little bit faster. I don't think there's a way to make it faster, at least I haven't found it. But yeah, that's something that can get a bit annoying. It's the same thing for waiting things out or sleeping. Yeah, the time, even when you wait or sleep, the time passes a little bit slow for my taste. Can get grating. Anything else, like the animations are a bit realistic when you get they try to be realistic when you get on the horse and all that stuff, which I'm not a fan of because you'll be watching those animations over and over. But I mean, I understand why they put them in. I just wish you could do without them. because after a while they just start to get on my nerves. Because maybe, I mean, this is just me probably, but after getting to a certain point, at a certain age, you start feeling like every second is precious. So you don't want to waste even like 2 seconds watching the same animation over and over. That's where I'm at with these kinds of games. That's why I don't play many open world games anymore. Because I feel like there's too much padding. And they're a waste of time for the most part. Like a lot of the quests in this game are kind of fetch quests. There are a lot of good quests, and the game gives you quite a lot of freedom, relatively to other types of games, in the way you complete the quests. But it also like there are also quite a few fetch quests which I'm not a fan of. I don't think I'm gonna like finish all of them, probably. So I haven't finished the game. I'm still playing it, but I have played it enough that I think I can give out my thoughts. So not to make this game too long, because there's no point. I definitely recommend this game if you like games, RPGs with a medieval type of setting. So well, like with blade combat, sword combat, and so on. Especially if you're a spark for this kind of historical period. Definitely, yeah. I also like the map. It's not too big, but it's not too small either. And I also enjoy how the whole thing feels pretty alive, because the characters all have their own routines and so on, which you can say it's standard for a game like this. But I think it's done well enough, in the sense that random events are also pretty common on the roads, so you're not like unlikely to meet like bandits or other things that make the travel interesting, even if you decide to make it real time. So it keeps things interesting with both the fast travel and also with the normal exploration on the horse. Because of course you wanna ride on the horse, because yeah, the map is too big to go on foot. Unless you like walking a lot, yeah, it's not suggested. When it comes to the mechanics, one thing I want to mention though is that the lockpicks, like the lockpicking, is kind of cancer. Honestly, it kind of needs a mouse to be done properly. So yeah, that's if you're playing this on console, yeah, it's probably not gonna be ideal in that sense. And yeah, one last gripe I have. I don't know if there's something wrong with my copy or a bug or what, but the characters can't get naked. Like if you remove all your clothes, the character will just remain in his pajamas. I don't know, in his sleeping vests, how you want to call them. Yeah, this is more of a nitpick, but it's weird because for example, there is a quest in which you have to enter into take a bath inside a pool of water, like a container, a medieval bathtub, a wooden bathtub, let's say. And yeah, you enter in the bathtub with that vest, which is kind of jarring to see. Like, it looks almost comical. So I don't know what's up with that. Why the characters cannot get completely undressed in that sense. It's weird. But other than that, there's not really anything else to mention, at least for me. If this kind of game came out today, people would say, "Oh, it's super based," because Yeah, it's all about Christianity and so on. I can see why people were praising it for this, and yeah, and then in the sequel they put they put sassy blacks, gay sex. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of based. But I think the at least the original is worth playing because it's definitely a fun game. The story seems interesting. I'm not gonna talk about it. Spoiler. Play it for yourself if you want. But the story seems promising so far. So like the game is also very cheap, so you can and it runs pretty much on any PC. Like the game is 80 years old. You can play it on any PC that has been like bought or built in the last 5 6 years probably. So it's not very hard to run anymore. I remember at launch it was kind of tough to run, but now it's old. It's an old game. So it's definitely a recommend from me, even though it's far from perfect. Like it has a lot of flaws. So it's very jank. Keep that in mind. If you like your experience pretty polished, yeah, no, don't play this. But if you can get around these types of issues, yeah, this game is definitely worth playing. So let me know your thoughts as usual, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye, guys.